In this video, we are going to cover Firebase Firetore Database. So let's get started without any further ado. So first of all, I have given this link in the description. You can directly check it out. Then let's click on Visit Console, and here what we have to do is create our Firebase account. I have already created one, so now you have to click on Add Project, and let's create our project. So the name will be Firebase Firetore, and okay, fine. And then I don't want any Google Analytics for this project, so I'm clicking on Create Project, and now it is creating a project for us. And let's do the React setup now. So what I have done is already created a React app with the command npx create react app, and then our app name simple. And you can also create your React app with this command or code, and then I have used npm star to make it live, and it's now live. Okay, and then what I have done is remove the default code from here and add this h1 tag. That is it. And now let's see, the Firebase project setup is now done, and now what we have to do is actually add an app. So now we are dealing with React.js, which is for web. So let's click on this web icon and let's give it our web app a name. So here what I'm going to do is simply give Firebase TED TUT. Just ignore the names, okay? And if you want the Firebase hosting, then you could use it. I don't want, so I'm not clicking on it, and I'm just simply clicking on register app. Fine. And now what is going to happen is you will get some data, and now just wait for it. Okay, now what you have to do is you need to install Firebase in your React app. So copy this command and then paste it in here and click enter, and it will automatically install Firebase in your machine in the required project which you are right now. Okay, fine guys. So after that you have this data. Now actually don't copy it, we can get it whenever we want it to be with us, so don't worry about that. Now simply click on continue to console. After this what we have to do is click on Firestore Database here, and let's refresh this site once so that all our data is right there with us within that particular project. Now what we do is click on create database, and I would like to create my database in the production mode. If you want in test mode, just read this once, and then if you want it, then you can use that. I am going with production mode, and then I'm clicking on next, and then select your region. I am in India, so I am choosing Asia South one. Then click on enable, and then it will create your Firestore database, and then you can actually work with your database. So guys, in this video I am only going to tell you that how you can integrate your database data within your React.js app. If you want further more videos on it, just subscribe the channel, because I am going to create a series on Firebase where we will be dealing with each and every stuff within Firebase in addition with React.js. Okay guys, so that's it. And why I'm creating this series, because someone from you asked me to create a video on Firestore, so that is the reason I am creating this video now. So here our database is ready now. Now we actually need to add in some data. So right now we are adding data with our keyboard by typing, I mean. So I'm clicking on start collection. Let's give it a name. Let's say developers. Okay, now it's fine, and click on next, and then let's give it an ID. Let's say dev1, and then let's give it a field of name, and I'll add my name here, that is Ashish. Fine. And then I would like to add a field called skill, which will be web dev, and then click on save. Similarly I will create two more. For that I have to click on add document, and again an ID dev2, then a field, let's say again name, and then we want, let's say the name is Abhi, and let's add a field called skill, and here let's add DevOps, and then let's click on save. And after this, let's create the last guy, that is dev3, let's say, and let's name him Sam. And then let's go to the value, and here what I'm going to do is in the value let's add him, let's make him an app dev, and then let's add a field with his skill. Okay, I did a mistake, so this will be name, this will be Sam, and this skill will be app dev. Fine, now let's save it. So here you have 3 devs within this developers collection. Now developers is a collection in your database where each of the documents are there, I mean IDs, or like consider this as a real thing. You have a group of developers that will be called a collection. Within those developers group you have developers, right? You have developer 1, developer 2, developer 3, and now developer 1 has his data, developer 2 has his data, and developer 3 has his data. So that is what it is happening here. And now let's go to the main part, that is integration of this thing in React.js. So I'm right here now, and what I'm going to do is create a file called firebase.js where our Firebase setup will be. Okay, this is the location of our Firebase setup. So I have already installed Firebase, that is npm install Firebase in your terminal. You must have to do that, okay? So don't forget to do. So now let's just import Firebase, and now it's imported in my file. And then what I have to do is import the Firestore. So let's do import Firebase slash Firestore. Fine. And now after importing this, we need the configuration data, that is our credentials for the project. How you can get them is click on the settings button on the top, go to project settings, and here you can go some down and click on this config, because we are working in React, so we just directly want this variable. If you are using anything like JavaScript or something or Node.js, you can actually use this npm command. I'm going with config, copying this, and then simply pasting it right here. And then we need to initialize our app with the data we are giving it here. And how to do that? We shall simply do firebase dot initialize app with this firebase config variable. And then let's export this Firebase so that we could use it in other files as well. So I'll simply do export default Firebase. Fine. Now all the complete setup for firebase.js is done. Now let's move on to app.js, and let's simply import the Firebase file. Firebase, not from Firebase, it's from /Firebase because it's a file. And now Firebase is imported, and now what we actually need to do is actually integrate it. So first of all, let's create a variable const ref, and this is the reference where we are storing that collection and its data, and from this particular ref we have to get our data, guys. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is Firebase, we are using that Firebase dot Firestore. From Firebase Firestore I want a collection. Okay, we got a collection, and right now we have to add the name of that collection, that is developers. Okay, fine. Now make sure that there is no spelling mistake. Okay, fine. Now let's test it with a log, that is, let's do log, just simply log this reference. Now if I save it and go to my React app, refresh it, and here is our data, and we have multiple functions to use to get our data. Now this is not that easy to understand. You have to spend a lot of time to understand all these functions and all this data, so just leave it alone because it's not that important. And now what we are going to do is use some use states to actually set our data into there. So let's import use state and use effect react hooks. So I'm saying import use state comma use effect, and let's create our use states. And the first one will be data, and its initial state will be an array of data. And then let's use another use state with the name loader, which has an initial state of true. Initially there is a loader, that is what I meant by this thing. And now let's create a function to actually get our data. So I'm simply saying a function with the name get data, and let's write the code in here. So we are using that the reference bucket we created, reference dot on snapshot. Okay, within this on snapshot we have to get a parameter which can be called anything you want. I am using query snapshot here. Okay, and after this what we have to do, okay, I'll make this queue small. That is the reason above that import has came, because we don't want that import, so I just removed it. Okay, it's a query snapshot, and what we have to do is let's create a variable called items to store the data. Okay, then let's do query snapshot dot for each, and let's do something like simple doc, and then within this function what we have to do is let's push each of the doc data into this items. So I simply do items dot push. For each of the element we are simply doing items dot push doc dot the doc, which is the parameter here, data, that particular doc's data. That is what we are doing here. After this I am simply saying set data to be that items thing, items variable, and then set my loader to be false, remove that loader. And now why are we using this two use states? Because when there is the data is there with me, then only show my data. That is the reason I am using these two use states. Fine. Okay, this much is good. And now let's call this function to test it out. So I'm simply using the use effect hook here, and let me just remove this, and then I want to use it only once when the component renders, so there is no input within these brackets. Fine. And now let's call this function get data, and after that let's log our data. And now I am hitting save, and now let's see. Okay, we have an error. app.js26 is this console log data. It is not giving any data to us. There is no data being added here, and we are getting an error saying error in snapshot listener, Firebase missing or insufficient permission. So it is saying that we don't have permissions, but we have all. Wait, we don't have one. What is it? Okay, let's go to it. So first of all, go to your settings, project settings. Okay, we were in there. Let's go to Firestore database. Okay, we have to go to Firestore database, then go to this rules section, guys, and we have to do a minor change here. Okay, so in the place of false, just make it true so that we could do changes, and then click on publish, and it will change those changes right in there. So that is what we wanted. Now it will do the work for us. And now if I refresh, and now we get our data, and now we can simply use that data. Okay, now there is no error about that. Okay guys, fine. Okay, now let's just remove these console logs. I'm just commenting this one, and now let's get the data into handy. And now I am using the JSX syntax here. So most of the part is done. Now we just need the integration here. So I'm saying if the loader is false, if the loader is not there, then and only then use my data, and then give me that particular thing. So I have that data variable. I'm simply doing data dot map, and within the map let's take each of our developers. I am giving the name dev for each of the parameter, and within this what we are doing is we are creating a div. Okay, before doing this, what I would like to do is Control X, name this app.js to app.jsx so that my work becomes easy. And now I don't need to actually type JSX again and again. It will automatically capture my JSX. Okay, fine. And now in here, first of all, I want a div, and let's create a div first of all. And I have my div. Let's give each of the divs a key, because in React we must give them a key. And now what is that key? Dev.id, which we gave here. Okay, I think we didn't give an ID. We have to give an ID here, guys. So from that we have to add another field here. Let's say ID, then let's make it a number, then value 1, then add. Then for dev2 we do need to do the same thing, ID string to number and then value 2. And then for dev3 let's do something like ID and then string, not string, it's a number, and then 3. So this is thing which we have to do. And now let's go here, and I'm simply saying that particular devs I want an ID. And within this div, now what we have to do is get his name. So I'm using an h2 for name. Okay, let's use a h1. And in here I'm simply saying dev.name, that is what we use, right? And after this I will use p for dev skill. So I'm just doing dev.skill for his skill, and that is fine. And here let's add a name so that we could see that it is a name. And here let's add something called skills. And now if I save, let's see what happens with the React app. Okay, there is some error. So it is saying no such file or directory. Okay, there is some error. Okay, we can't change this to JSX. We have to rename it to JS, because our index file we must have only JS. And now if I refresh, it should work. And now you see we have our data: name Ashish, skill web dev, name Abhi, skill DevOps, and then name Sam, skill app dev. So guys, this is how we are going to get the data. Now let me show you something amazing. Okay, so for dev1, that is Ashish, I am modifying this web dev to web slash app dev and update. And now just see what happens to the React app. I'm not going to refresh it or do something. It will automatically get updated to web slash app dev. So that is something amazing about Firestore. Now if you don't want this, this can also be done, and that is what I will be telling you in the next episode of this series. And just stay tuned about that. And let's just let's just end this video. Okay, so guys, I know if you have subscribed to the channel, thanks a lot for that. But if you haven't, just subscribe the channel and watch this Jarvis playlist if you want to create Jarvis of your own. So that is it for this video. Subscribe and press the bell icon to get notifications for my new videos, and let's meet again in the another beautiful video just like this one. Until then, bye guys.